Yoda mofos, I hope you can hear me clearly. Please tell me the audio quality because I rewatched the last couple shows and, well, it sounded like shit. And, it was supposed to be all fixed and shit, but it just didn't. So I don't even, am I live? Am I not live? Who knows? We don't know here. Sounds good. All right. So hopefully I won't blast you with David Dubai. Could you guys tell me when he comes on to turn it down so it's not so chirpy, maybe? I mean, it sucks because we were trying to do it through the computer, but for some reason, wherever he's at and wherever I'm at, when we connect through the internet, through the computer and the Skype, it just doesn't fucking connect. So I don't know what's up with that, but let's get started with the MIAC on 420 TV. We'll go over to our nighttime colors. Because I feel more comfortable in nighttime colors. It's easier on my eyes, for one, with all that blue light beaming me in the face with all these things. You are always quiet, and David is always loud. Well, that's kind of why, like I said, we're getting a phone call. I'm putting the phone on the mic, and sometimes I come away, but I don't know. Am I quiet now? Am I quiet now? Yeah, this is easier on your eyeballs, actually, if you're watching on a television or on a tablet or on a computer monitor. A lot less blue light just beaming you in your eyeballs, helping you go blind. Sounds good. Well, you're here in the studio, Raven Wolf, and you're listening on a phone. Let's see here. Dana Green. No, the sound is good. Okay, because I fiddled with it with some headphones on. But like I said, every time I do that and then I go back, something gets reset. And I've been streaming kind of old stuff for fun, but part of the process got stopped here because the fucking leak project came through my roof and fucked up one of my computers. So that thing's toast. It says, boot device not found. Please install an operating system on your hard disk. Damn it. One computer up and then another one down. It's just crazy. All right. But anyway. Let me make sure we got this set up right here. Right here. And I'll try to turn him down a little bit so it equals us out. And all this whole time I've been holding the phone backwards in this whole setup. So I'm surprised David and the other people could even hear me because I was talking into the wrong side of the phone where the mic is not at, and then I switched it around last time, so I don't know. And Mr. Dubai said that the reason he left us like fat girls at prom night hanging last Thursday was because he was out on a boat looking at the fallen stars and having a good old time or some shit like that. Looks like you have another stream live on YouTube. Uh-oh. We have a glitchy? I don't know. Should I deal with that now or later? This is the one I'm on. I hope this is the one you're watching. I don't fucking know. And, people keep coming in here constantly bitching about how you can't rewind it. I don't fucking know, man. I don't fucking know why it doesn't do that. Is it part of the shadow banding? Maybe there's some setting I don't fucking know about. I don't really care. You can watch it live. You can rewind it when it's over. I know that works, so whatever. Don't get mad. Don't get mad. You'll have to experience things with us now, live. Because now is all you got. Memories, the future, that's all in your head. Now is the only time. I mean, it's always now. No matter what time you're in, it's going to be right now. And no matter where you go, there you are. So you don't have to stress on that. Anyway, let's see here. We got to open up Skype. We got to open up Skype so we can get a conversation going. And hopefully I won't get banned. Because YouTube despises my channel. I don't know what it is. I'm just a little guy. But every time I get to 1,000, actually most often 1,007 times now, they can my channel for something. It's this, that, the other thing. Somebody got their toe hurt or somebody got their butt hurt or whatever it was. And I guess they showed YouTube on a dolly where I hurt them and then they just cut my channel off. Because that's the way it is. Because we live in what they used to call it, Swabiland or whatever the fuck it was. What was their mythological idea of Germany in the 30s? They're trying to pull that shit here and rewrap it with some new a new ad campaign and just give it to you. You're living in the 30s. You watched all those Nazi movies about the 30s, you know, and they started doing all these crazy things, segregating people, saying those people have disease, starting to build camps over here and over there. You can't go nowhere without papers, please, papers. Where's your papers? And now they literally want to muzzle your shit. I don't know. It's just nonsense. And if you can't see that you're watching one of those movies, holy shit, you're you're partly brainwashed. But I get arguments all the time. Well, you just stop voting for them Democrats and vote for them Republicans. And, you know, from my point of view, they're both completely corrupt institutions to the core. They always vote for the same things when it comes to tyranny, when it comes to spying, when it comes to limiting freedom, when it comes to limiting your individual rights. Because we're a nation of individuals, not groups. Stop joining groups. Anyway, here we go. Yes, I want to accept that. Thank you.
Very few mainstream outlets are talking about the most important issue of our time, cold weather crop losses. Our sun is going through a 400-year cycle, which has effects on our weather patterns as our magnetosphere weakens and the jet streams go out of flow. It's not CO2, it's not you, it's the sun. Are you ready to thrive in the grand solar minimum? Then join me for mini Ice Age conversations. I'm your host, David Dubine, creator of the Adapt 2030 Mini Ice Age 2015 to 235 video series. And I do welcome you this evening, this morning, or this afternoon, wherever you are on this beautiful blue planet. It's been an exciting week, has it not? How much has transpired so quickly to deflect from other things happening, such as food hyperinflation. And have you seen the world start to get the thumb screws put on it, and how are people reacting or behaving? I have my own story here. I just was in Nashville for the last few days, capital city. So, you know, I'm sure it's the same with everybody's state out there. As soon as you move away from the capitals, they're not so fervent or so strict about the rules. You know, there's a lot more leniency in terms of whatever would be mandated. So, for example, in Tennessee, there's no mask mandates, none, zero. Yet, the person I was with had to go into the Apple store to get a charger because they forgot it. And I was told by this smug, ridiculous person that my rights ended at the door, that I have no constitutional liberties. Forced to wear a mask, and as soon as I pulled it down to talk to the guy, because I couldn't wear the thing, couldn't talk, he didn't understand what I was saying. I pulled it down, and a woman came charging across the store. Put your mask on, put your mask on. It's got to go above your nose, got to cover your mouth and nose. And I thought, okay, I never buy Apple again, ever. I don't anyway, because I don't approve of what they do with slave labor in China, but that's another point. The realization hit me so hard, like a brick upside the head. And then lo and behold, just earlier today, just before Ransom and I were going to get on here, I saw this video about people trying to get into supermarkets in France being denied because they didn't have this app on their phone that would allow them in. And I thought to myself, that's the exact thing that hit me as on the brick on the head when I was sitting in that smug, nobody should ever buy Apple again shop. And I was sitting there just biting my teeth, gritting my teeth, so angry and fuming at that point. the smugness to say, well, now your constitutional liberties don't apply to the store. I was told that. That is the most ridiculous. At that point, I was on fire. It's probably saw my face turn red. And yeah. But I was thinking that if they would have tried to mandate the same thing and then stopped me from getting food or others from getting food, it was going to be game on. And here, I could not even believe it. I saw the same thing today in France. So it's coming. It's coming. And the hyperinflation with the food happening and then the limitation of getting food. At that point, see, this is what I realized. The brick to the head yesterday was when people have nothing left to lose, they're going to lose it. And, you know, being denied entry at a supermarket because you don't have an app on your phone, people are going to lose it. And I realized that right there. And I think that's the direction the elite want to push people, knowing that's the response. And the outcome is going to be people are going to lose it. Then there'll be more mandates and more restrictions. Oh, we need to take these things away from you. And you can't have those things because they're too dangerous. People were using them to go get food out of the store. But anyway, did anybody see the meteor shower last week? I did. And I saw the biggest shooting stars I'd ever seen in my life. They came blazing overhead, orange. And I was like, whoa, the smoke trail. I was like, that thing was low in the atmosphere. With so many things going on, roundups are already planned for rural populations. I mean, we jumped the shark on the distraction factor here. And this is kind of what, hopefully tonight we can take it, along with Ransom Godwin from 420 TV Freedomist Films and myself, David Dubine here. The distractions are out there. Like, I don't know what was being distracted ED from last week with the whole Afghan debacle. But it was perfectly timed for a distraction of something else. So my question, which I do not have the answer for, I don't have the answer, I'm just asking the question. What went on at that exact same time that was buried on page 37? That would have been front page news. That would have either been embarrassing or had some kind of real repercussion in society. Yet we saw people getting evacuated by helicopter. So see, the timing of it could happen a week before, a week after. It seemed like it was a perfectly placed and ployed event. Now, for me, as I've been saying all along, Trojan horse there is the old dude. He's going to be taken out of power because this, you can already see the writing on the wall. I didn't really read the news for a few days. Then I came back today to get ready for the show. And sure enough, right on cue. Oh, you already knew it was going to happen. This guy's incompetent. Impeach the guy, whatever. You already see the playbook. Just as clearly as you see the playbook of elite trying to stop you have access for food, and they know their response, what it's going to be. You knew old dude was already going to be taken out well before the 4 years was over, and that was already the playbook. It was just, how was it going to be done? Was it going to be the senility? Probably not just enough on its own. But now, the whole Afghan debacle plus senility, that's a double whammy. You're out of there, dude. Bring in the chick. You know, things are telegraphed so easily by the elite. The telegraph play is there. The exact formation of the play is not. So, Ransom, I'm super glad you're joining me tonight. Yeah, but wild weeks it's been a couple wild weeks for sure. Uptick, I can definitely say without a doubt, these last, I'm going to say 1 to 2 weeks was a serious uptick. I don't know if it was because the meteor shower, the Perseid meteor shower was so gigantic and 3x above the normal, with the bolides coming in that were gigantic in size. Like, I've seen a fair few meteor showers in my day. I really love space, and I love all things outer space, and, meteor showers and eclipses and, full moons and, super moons. I love it all. I really do. I'm super into it. Solstices and equinoxes. Man, I try to plan my energy and goals and mantras, like moving through the year based on these days too. So I'm super into it, and I've seen a lot of meteor showers in my day, I must say. The size of the debris coming in was unsurpassed. Like I said, I'd never seen one that big in my life. Came blazing right overhead. But there was some serious girth, and not only that, serious girth into the debris. But the amount of debris was about 3x higher. They were getting somewhere around almost 300 meteors coming through per hour. And another strange thing, if you didn't know, I think it was the telescope in Hawaii, Mauna Kea, picked up Six came in at the exact same time, which is kind of unheard of. But to capture six meteorites, shooting stars, whatever you like to name them, coming in from the same quadrant at the exact same time, we're definitely heading into something deeper, thicker in space. So perhaps that's the reason that everything has upticked in this last, I don't know, week or so, because, it was the meteor shower and then all of a sudden the Afghanistan thing. So I'm wondering if the meteor shower signaled to the elite and they were waiting for it to see the heaviness of the debris in order to act or put the next chess piece in play on the board. And I guess that's all I'm going to open up with there. Ransom Godwin, 420 TV, Freedomist Films.
What's up?
On your dial. Welcome.
How's it going? I haven't been surprised at what I've been watching. Actually, I saw a very familiar pattern on the news headlines while I was paying attention this last week. Do you remember in 2011 when Haiti had a big earthquake and then it was followed by a hurricane? And then I'm looking on the news in the past week, and so Haiti has a big earthquake. It's not really headlines. It usually isn't unless there's nothing else to talk about. And then, of course, they have a hurricane down there. But I just thought the same events. And then I'm watching this Benghazi-style weapons transfer. And I'm going to call it that because that's exactly what it looked like to me, is that we just left billions of dollars worth of equipment that was supposed to go to, 300,000 or 30,000 Afghan troops that we supposedly trained, who just walked away and left. And then you see exactly the same images, so much so that it looked like, was that the same black cat that I saw there? Was that deja vu? Or am I just, because they're regurgitating already used stories, it seems like. I look at these pictures and they're taken exactly, I'm sure you saw the headlines where in Vietnam we're doing the same exact thing. And then I saw elements of Benghazi. It's like they mushed up two different episodes of American history to create the latest masterpiece of how they're going to open up Europe to floods of misery. That's what I see. I see us starting or on purpose leaving, because they already had an exit plan, which involved evacuating all of their assets, moving all of the equipment out first, and then leaving. But 2 months ago, our great President Biden, he decided we didn't need that plan. You know what? We'll just do it all at once. And if you're left behind enemy lines, oh well. And you know what? We'll just go ahead and ship all these people, middle-aged, military-aged men, mostly like 80%, right over here to the United States. And then all you're going to hear from now on is refugee, refugee, refugee. We've already heard this. It's how they move the pieces on the board right in front of your face without the public actually thinking about what they're seeing. And, you're talking about these times and going through debris fields. I think they do pick these specific times. I was showing Tokyo with their new island. They had a whole rash of earthquakes too. And I imagine we're going to see so much volcanic activity increasing and other things like that, that it's going to be hard for them to just try to narrate the news for us, because people are living in the real world and seeing that reality is different than the distraction. It's becoming so easy to tell that whenever you see repeated pictures that they've used for propaganda on more than one occasion.
Ransom, good artist copy, great artist steal 2.0.
Right.
You turned me on to a thought there about Libya when you said Benghazi. The whole thing about that, not a lot of people are aware of. Gaddafi was in the expansion phase of the agriculture from the underground water resources in the Nubian aquifer. And they'd already done several different test plots of 1,000 hectares in several different regions across Libya to see which crop species would grow in which area. Because I didn't know this too. Looking at previous maps and going back into, let's say, 6,000 years ago, mid-Holocene, there was quite a few swamps and really low-lying areas that were boggy and that were actual inland lakes, etc. So what they were trying to do was replicate some of that, refill those areas with water, turn them into inland estuary habitats, but at the same time grow crops and different crop species depending on, again, how much water was there, how much reflection there would be, the heat, and some of these parameters they were using about wind flow across the desert sands and the evaporation, and it was quite a complex mathematical equation to figure out which crop species would grow with the evaporation on the winds, on the average wind speed and the average temperatures, etc. I mean, they were trying to work it from nothing into a viable crop zone. And some of these images I saw, I just shocked. I was looking at a lake as far as the eye could see from the shore of that thing, but that was all from water from the Nubian aquifer that was pumped up. Now Gaddafi was in the expansion phase of all these other crops going. It was 1,000 hectare, and then they did several 10,000 hectare plots. Well, that's a lot of acres. That's like 25,000 acres. But the point was they were moving up to the million acre, 500,000 hectare range, and they were going to do it in several places. So you got to think about 500,000 hectares. You're talking a million plus acres in multi areas around the country. Now, at that point, they were going to start growing crops and they were going to export it. And, again, they didn't want to use US dollars. But the scary thing was, once they put that proof of concept and they were into the scaling up phase of that, we went through and blew up all their water works, clear out into the desert, rivers in the desert, underground water pipelines, not oil. And Gaddafi was really concerned about feeding his people, teaching a lot of people agriculture, using this idea of tapping underground water resources across the entire Nubian aquifer basin as well as the Chad basin to make the Sahel and North Africa completely independent and a food producer to compete with the West, and also not use dollars to do it. And when you hit Benghazi and you mentioned Libya, my whole thing is about food again, food. But that was it. They did that on purpose to stop the test phase and proof of concept phase for every country across, say, Central to North Africa to become food and energy independent away from the West and have export markets for this food as well. Enter Africa at first because they had, in trading bloc, just like there is up at the EU or here in the North American Free Trade Agreement. But that's really sad what was taken away from our world, because you got to think back 2011 they'd started these projects like 2001, then there was another uptick in 2005. So think about 10 years of irrigating the deserts and learning how to pump which areas, proof of concept of crops in which moisture evaporation zones. Africa would be an entirely different continent if that hadn't happened. And when I say that, I'm really not exaggerating in any way, shape, or form. I'm simply stating almost every country in Africa would have tapped their underwater resources by now and have started growing food on their own right now, cutting the reliance from the West. And it just so happens that whole thing got smashed to smithereens, and guess what? Africa still is incredible dependent on the West, if not even more so. Good artist copy, great artist steal, Ransom.
That's true. And you know how I was talking about that they just seem to try to recycle the headlines. Last week, I sent you this article that I read about Putin's Gaddafi comeback. And, in there, they're talking about his son and how, he's the most likely new leader that will obviously try to follow in his father's footsteps and try to pull some of the same moves so we can repeat the headlines. I'm sure that because there's a different bunch in, they probably won't chase him down and, we came, we saw, and he died stuff again, but it'll be similar. Look, there's Libya, this Gaddafi guy. It's like the second generation, they keep making up these headlines, but it's obvious from what's going on. If you were just playing a game, let's say we were playing a game of Risk, and you saw all the troops going in a certain direction, somebody's going to be trying to take that area. And that's what I see. I see that, obviously. That's what's going on. We've talked about it. And it's so funny because what's going on is also nobody's growing food. There's food shortages. There's lockdowns. There's craziness with whatever's going on with trying to stop and halt the remnants of a free market or a world, business that interacts with commerce between nations. That's all coming to a halt. But at the same time, we're going to redistribute lots of hungry tummies with, conflicting ideologies. That seems like a perfectly normal solution to today's problems. We have a pandemic. You know what? Here's a good idea. Since we're having a pandemic, let's move a bunch of people from here to there. We'll probably not even, test them or nothing. But that seems like a good idea. But you need to stay home and you need to follow the local mandates, which, by the way, are not laws. The government right now seems to be playing a game of chicken with the citizens on seeing how much stupid human tricks that they'll actually follow and how many people will get culty and follow the establishment and attack, I'm going to say individual. I'm going to use that word because that's what our country was founded on. Individuals, individual rights, not group rights or group think or none of that stuff, but individual rights. And I find it very odd that, like, right now, it's becoming so bizarre out there that, we've got different facts, of course, and I understand that. So I get that. But what if your job let's say you were in a think tank and what you wanted to do is bring out all of the people right before some kind of emergency that will be competition or might be self-sufficient or may have different ambitions in life about how they want to see the world unfold, maybe not in the direction that the powers that be want to roll out their nightmare of dystopian, craziness and tyranny. Other people have other ideas of how the future want to go, and all of those people outed themselves. All of the outliers, they all outed themselves. And now everybody knows who they are, whether it's people that argue about medicine, whether it's people that talk about clean foods or clean waters, whether it's people that are talking about any given specific inalienable right that we supposedly enjoy in this free country, are pointed out now. They're on a list. And, I'm sure, David, you're on a list. I mean, you kind of got confirmation on that when a left-wing mainstream media took the time out of their, busy schedule of propaganda to write a piece on somebody on YouTube that may or may not have conflicting, arguments about the way that things work in the cycles we're going through. And I finally heard it. I listened to the entire LeakCon 2019 thing and played it, streamed it on my channel. And I heard somebody make the same point that I've made lots of times, that it's very doubtful that primitive man or Cro-Magnon man or, pick one of the prehistoric mans, they weren't driving their SUVs around causing the last increase in temperature. So why would I think that they are now? And the simple fact that we're arguing whether or not a giant plasma ball that heats me every morning is actually the driver of climate or not.
Yeah, and Robert Felix had spoken at LeakCon as well.
Yeah.
Who's no longer with us after having a bout of new medicine into the bloodstream. Sad as that is, rest in peace. Because Robert, he gave me a lot of chances and we talked, and he gave me a couple of my good interviews that, helped me get more established into the whole alternative science and a different approach and look on longer term cycles. Because he was talking about magnetic reversals and evolutionary leaps, but he was tracing it back, going back 20 million years, in the different amount of reversals and the species of plant and animal that had emerged because of these reversals. And he did quite a good job. And then from his work, that led over to Douglas Vogt trying to tick it down and bring it into the 12,000 year minor excursions versus full reversals. So it was all, work that led to sparks of creativity and ideas in different directions of thought to others that were in sort of similar spaces that came up with new ideas. But yeah, that Vice hit piece on me. I am still talking with a couple of attorneys to see which direction they would want to take it finally. So the defamation on that is just in itself, and if you're trying to cause financial loss to somebody, there's tortious interference. There was all these different keywords. I'm not a legalese person, but the way they described it is that was a direct effort to A, make you lose your livelihood, B, make you lose your reputation, C, slander you in front of others to diminish your professional reputation across whatever, blogosphere, sphere of digital influence, or even a public space, for example. So when you come at you like that, things are getting close. But then another thing in that Apple shop, I was a little fuming, and I was a little angry about that when the guy told me, no, your constitutional rights don't apply here. This is a private store. In America, in a shopping mall in Nashville, Tennessee, and you're telling me in the Southeast U.S. that my rights end when I walk through your door because, it's a private company. So I had a good go-around with some people talking at a deep discussion level. How is it now that private companies have more power than governments, and everything that has been told on the national level in terms of mandates can suddenly be swept under the rug by a private company that tells you have to do this even though the national government, state governments, local governments say you don't? That we're a private company and we can say anything. So the discussion was pretty much, how did suddenly private companies get more powerful than the governments, and private companies are now, they used to tell governments what to do. So at least there was a little bit of a buffer between, right? And you knew it was always the shenanigans of, companies would pay government officials, lobbyists, and that whole dark net of deceit and bribery that goes on there in the consulting world / lobbyists is a good way to put it. But to come right on the ground and have the enforcers at the door of these smug, people at the door like, oh no, we work for Apple. Your constitutional rights are no good here, boy. You need to put on a mask. At this point, it kind of hit me, and I was sitting in there, and then I got into a super deep argument with the person I was with. I was like, you're supporting this shit? Excuse my French. They're using slave labor, and you're still buying this junk? Really? So, the whole go around was like, don't buy any more Apple products. Like, come on, really? I mean, we can all live without that. I wish everybody would ditch them, and I wish that company would go out of business. Snooping on your phones through all the text messages, etc., is one thing. All your image searches is another. And then the audacity and just pure ridiculousness of the store enforcers. But as I was sitting there, and it was a pretty full store, and almost everybody in there was one of those little bouncy, hey, I'm going to wear a mask, look how cool I am. I even got a little band on my thing. Oh, you look at me, I'm so woke, I'm so in it, because I want everybody to know that I do everything the government says so everybody will approve of me. That crowd. And when I sat there, I looked around and I was like, you know what? 98% of these people are going to be in camps and starving in less than 8 months. And I don't even care anymore. That was my attitude, because I looked at that and I was like, you know what? My message going out to those that are going to be the ones that will catch the message and then awaken or be awakened. And then maybe it'll solidify something of, we really need to get ready. This is quite the mess right now. And as you can see, there's so many distractions. And now the limitations possibly of food, which I'd love to talk about in France. But, looking at it, I was saying, of everybody in this store, none of them will get my message. I doubted even if it was presented in a certain way that even anybody would care or even change or anything. I was like, all right, they're all going to the camps or they're all going to be starving, one of the two. And it really shook me. I was like, I just didn't care anymore at that point. I was like, this is the way it is. I used to really, even up until a few days ago, like, yeah, we need to get the message out. I need to get more message out. And I'm looking at it going, even if I get the message out, almost nobody's going to survive through this. This is crazy. Look at these sheep. these absolute kowtowing sheep that will never put up any resistance at all, ever, ever. They're just going to walk themselves into a guillotine, happily smiling with a mask on. No resistance is coming from the general populace. Let me say that to you. Because what I saw in that sheep smug fest of that ridiculous slave labor shop that has an eye with it, that sells I use slave labor products, I was shocked. I was really shocked what I saw in that store. And I was more shocked about the public. That the realization really hit me in that you're on your own. If you're out there and you're listening and you have prepared, you're truly on your own. There's nobody going to come and help. Nobody's coming to help. We are on our own, and you did the best you could, and that's all the better it's going to get. Because what I have seen through that capital city of Nashville, 98% of people aren't going to make it through this. There's going to be very few people that are able to do anything other than kowtow and say, yes, government, and please put that black cloth across my face while you line me up on the guillotine. That is the only thing that I saw. And that is a sad statement to say. It really kind of, I looked at humanity in quite a different way, and I looked at this Great Reset, and I'm like, maybe there is something to it. Maybe they want to get rid of this sheep. And I was sitting there, and so many thoughts were running through my mind in this scene going on. I was like, oh my, what am I seeing? This dystopian nightmare that I just kind of dropped into it, you know? Because I've been living way out in the countryside during this whole entire COVID thing. Farming country, farming community, way out near the Cherokee National Forest, like super out. And when I went to downtown Nashville, man, I tell you what, my mind was shattered on the compliance and the sheep. And those would be the ones that would turn you in. Neighbors that would turn in other neighbors, I saw rooms of them. I saw a whole room full of them in that ridiculous store. I was just shocked at what I saw in that kind of. So keep in mind, anybody listening, almost everybody will turn you in if they have a chance, and you are completely on your own. There's going to be nobody like, hey, let's get our communities together and stuff. Yeah, you either have a community together that's already going to get tighter, or you don't. Because I was looking through that whole crowd and going, man, I don't know. None of them would help. None. I didn't see any that I thought would even blink an eye, other than put on a third mask and walk into that room over there that has a special shower heads on it, dude. You know, that kind of ridiculousness. I was like, oh my, we're in so much trouble. I really thought it was I really thought it could be better than that, but I'm here in the Southeast U.S. Like, it's got to be way worse in Oregon, way worse in California. And I thought I was like in a super strong rights-driven place down here in the Southeast U.S., Tennessee of all places. You know, they're still flying like Trump flags and stuff down here, and everybody, you know, pretty staunch about having the liberties. I guess not in the capital city. That'll be a quick depopulation right there. That'll be a super fast flash pan depop, and then boom, it'll be empty because everybody wouldn't resist. There would be nothing. Now I can see how armies overtake cities so fast, because what I saw there, I was like, man, nobody resist. That'd be the fastest place to take over. You'd think capital city would be super defended, hard to take over. And what I saw was the complete opposite. What a sitting duck those cities are. There's no defense there. There's no cohesion there. Nobody's prepared there. Nobody knows how to do anything except comply there. I was shocked. My mind was really blown on the inverse of a lot of things I thought were laid bare to me. Truly, they were laid bare. The emperor has no clothes, man. I'm telling you, Ransom. It was the most awe-inspiring, shocking mind meld of an experience and thoughts I thought would never come into my head, and ideas I thought I would never think or see, and then things I never even thought about just appeared out of nowhere, all in just flashes and glimpses through a couple of days. I don't know. And I was sober the whole time, too. That's a crazy thing. Well, I mean, yeah, except some drinks at night, but sheesh, I'm telling you, we are in serious trouble, man. Serious. And if anything really, truly gargantuan happens, I could see why there was a reset back with the Tartarian times and, you know, mud flood, and why they find abandoned societies, etc. But any country that would want to invade the United States, capital cities would be where you want to go first. I understand why they would invade the capital cities first. I understand it firsthand now. As an invading army, you would go there. That's the easiest place to go. Out here in the wilderness and out in the, out in the farming country and stuff. No. That's going to be a super difficult, behind every blade of grass kind of place. And you would think it's the opposite. You think it might be too spread out here. Not enough people that would do anything, to be a nuisance. But it's the opposite. In the cities, you would think, oh man, every building's, nope. I completely lost my mind the last couple days. I'm going to leave it there because I'm going to get myself in trouble if I keep.
Yeah, that's funny though, because I've been in Nashville several times. I don't know what time of day you went through there. So like if you went through at any time that's business hours, and I'm going to say it starts like at 3:00 in the morning. I've traveled through there so many times, and the only way to get through that nightmare of spaghetti and area is to hit it right at the right time, like at, 2:30 in the morning, and get through there by 3:00. And then you might skate through that all without getting run over. But in the daytime, it's hectic. Anywhere you want to go, crossing through there. And you know what's so weird is that's a city that's located in the middle of the forest. So that one right there might be a little bubble right there, and you had the city shock again. I guess it's been a while since you kind of went in one, but they're all like that. Just like you said, there's all kinds of lost people, people with less than 1 day worth of groceries, people that don't have real money of any kind. They just go from month to month to month. Most of them don't have cars. Most of them don't have any kind of backup of anything. Most of them have decided that they don't need to protect themselves. Most of them have decided to do anything that their local lords in the feudalist system tell them to do. So, and you're right about that. And that word you're kind of looking for, I think, was fascism. It's when the corporations have pretty much shadowly merged with the government, and to where there's only really one entity pushing whatever agenda it is. They all do it in unison. And it's laughable that these people that keep joining groups, these groups that are created by the controllers, like Republicans and Democrats, and then, expect a different result when they get in their positions and they do exactly what they were supposed to do, which is vote in and make every kind of tyrannical law, available. They're never going in there and adding rights. They say they are, but, it's always a restriction of one kind or another. And then that word mandate, they stopped making laws. They realized our system was too complicated to, it prevented tyranny in a checks and balances system. So what they've done over time is incrementally put world governments in the local area when globalism meets localism. And from there, they've just been replacing every judge, every mayor, every district attorney with people that see things the way that they do. So each one of those little bubble cities that are run by, one party or the other has their own things. But one thing they do have in common is that they will always participate on crackdowns and individual freedom. And we have the opposite system than that, unfortunately now. And we are on the cusp of a form of either super communism, where the government runs all corporations, or a super fascism, where the banks and the corporations run all governments. And either way, it's the same coin, just two sides of world governance, and both sides of the coin are run by the same, centralized universal power, I guess you could call it that, of Earth that's been pulling the strings. And they're getting so lazy. I think it's because we're fast approaching the time that they've incrementalized to transform the world into a specific, frequency, a specific kind of people living, the kind of people you were talking about. And, that's not really far-fetched. We all know what happened with the Stasis in East Germany, with the Nazis, you can pick so many countries throughout time. And one thing that's been common all throughout history up into the United States is every one of those empires is ran by a dictator. So it's funny that the first one that put down on paper that our creator gives us individual rights, the most powerful thing ever, the individual power of thought and freedom, creation and all of those other things. And you can't have any of that with totalitarian rules that set up people to behave like sheep. It's like we're watching one big giant experiment. I don't remember the name of it, but there was an experiment where they put regular people together, an equal number of those people, and one group was given uniforms as a prisoner, and the other group was given, tools and badges and little flashlights, and they were told that they were the guards. And within a short amount of time, behaviors started to change with their delusions of reality. The prisoners began to behave like prisoners, and the guards began to behave like guards. And it wasn't very long before normal people were programmed into either one or another set of fake realities. And they're just doing it on a mass scale now. And that's where you get all of these Karens. And if you think it won't happen now, I just saw the other day in Australia, a woman called the health services on her own husband because he disagreed about medication, and they put him in a loony bin. I've seen children getting maced. I've seen people being kidnapped. I've seen people being tackled to the ground and been given things that they don't want. We are living in such a bizarre time, and I think that everybody's in a massive state of denial because they won't just admit what's at the face value. And I think the reason for that is because our founders didn't exactly advocate unprovoked violence. However, they did condone violence. I mean, our whole nation is set up on the idea of protecting oneself, one's interests, one's liberties, and one's private property. And if you don't have any of those things, if you flood whatever area with lots of other people from other places, and you dissolve the idea of private property, you dissolve the idea of the individual having a voice and having rights that cannot be changed, then we don't have a civilization that we pretend we have. We have what they have over in China. And you should be scared out of your boots because everything that we've been talking about, including the COVID passports to go to the grocery store, and the fact that China is going to be pulling a massive power grab, which they did. And you saw Biden just yesterday told the news that, he misspoke when he said that we were going to continue to protect Taiwan. And it's funny because we're repeating those news cycles. If you remember, in the Obama administration, we pulled out the fleet that has been there since like 1952 or something like that. Very crazy times we're living in.
Yeah, a repeat is as well that 2001, with the collapse of Afghanistan, everybody's going to start running around, and the news feed is just full of this organization, that organization, whatever you want to nickname them, Al-Qaeda, there's many a name for them, are all back again. They're all suddenly back, and they're all going to be in America. And they're all... Because the Afghanistan pullout's too coincidental and too timed perfectly, with a lot of resistance right now coming up against all the mandates and all the forced measures globally. They realize that this virus thing isn't working the way it was supposed to scare everybody into total compliance.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of work that the elites still have to do in a quick fashion. So you saw how many liberties were eroded after 2001. So then it's the same playbook coming back in. Oh, these people are here to harm you. Oh, this group of people again. Oh, we got to take more liberties. There's going to be more surveillance, more control, because all these people are back in action again. You can already see it moving that direction again. So it'll be, I guess, a two-layered approach of control, access to food, etc., and then closure of movement, more protected movement. Because I say, these grand solar minimums, one of the biggest things that was encountered was population migration. People moved when they could, when they realized the food wouldn't grow, the food got too expensive, or just non-availability and famine hit the land. People were able to pick up and move in great numbers across the planet. But not at the speed we do today, but in the 1600s, it's not like you were, rolling a stone wheel down the road at 2 miles a day. I mean, people were moving around quite a bit faster in the 1600s as well. So it seems that the world's population is being locked into their countries, but this is another layer on the net. So you can already see the pre-programming in the news cycle, the way it's moving out. Botched Afghanistan, clown removal. people are all over the place, stuck there. They can't get out. Nobody can get out of there. They can't even make it to the airport. Like 50,000 people in front of the gate going, hey, we helped you. You need to get us back to out of here. And then the whole news feed, the other half of the story is about all these organizations that are let out of prisons there, and they're reassembling and getting ready to go to the States. And they're all targeting the States. And you keep hearing they're all targeting the West. And you know that that's going to be the play. They're going to use that excuse to allow these, I don't know, forces to move around the planet, do their nasty deeds, and then put more restrictive measures on movement and more tracking and tracing, more surveillance of the citizenry, just like they did in 2001. But this time it needs to be ramped up and amped up, in addition to all the mandates from the medical establishment, as well as Klaus Schwab's Great Reset crowd. So you're getting a layer cake of control mechanisms built in on top. The virus thing itself's not, I guess, all encompassing, powerful enough to get done the results that these elite are looking for. So now we're going to have yet another string of it. Watch it, mark my words. Give it 2 months and it'll start in earnest. I would say right around the time the second lockdown comes in, somewhere around November, December, start looking for it. These two sets of events are going to overlap, because then they can get the ultimate control grid out there. More surveillance. Oh, by the way, you have to show this on your phone before you can go get food. Oh, those people who are resistant to that. Oh, we're already out looking for these new groups of people that come over from Afghanistan. Oh, 2 birds, 1 stone. Isn't that convenient? You can see the playbook. You can see how it's going out. So the narrative that's being fed to us, circulated to us on this Biden exit strategy, also has baked in the cake of another control layer. I'm just curious how fast it's going to play out, and when that kind of trump card's going to be thrown down to be used. Because the shock factor of everything has completely worn off for this. Now they're going to bring out the Lambda or whatever virus strain. I saw that today in the news feed too. Lambda is back, or Lamada, however you say, is coming on strong. So it's going to be a never-ending, recurring. Omega's next. You know, you could have a train car, whizzing by on the tracks of different names of Lambada, Omega, whatever next. Grand solar minimum, the food shortages, and then they're going to have all the surveillance, and the whole new terror thing is going to start again. And where's that going to leave us in 2022 with hyperinflation on the food? People are going to be less controlled. And then, I did see that Biden had raised the food stamp allotment, the most ever in recorded history for the United States, 25% in a single jump. So what do they know about increasing and rising food prices to put that gargantuan of a jump in front of the food inflation? So you can see it, all these things coalescing and dovetailing. But this, my friends, is merely the beginning. Into 2022, when these dovetail into a twisted rope of control, then what? Because then that's going to be the pushback phase. People are going to really start pushing back on, I can't go into a store, I got nothing left to lose. All right, so then there's going to be this whole gamut of, again, it's already going to be set in motion for people who are going to resist everything and have nothing to lose, and they're going to go for it. And then we can see what kind of control. Then that gives the excuse for militarized whatever. I don't care if it's your local law enforcement with their autos, or if it's full-on military guarding every store, having troops stationed in every single place where there's food. And I already see that by 2023. So between here and there, I'm starting to see a few more glimpses into how that's going to be rolled out. And that's a far stretch right now. I mean, they did when the sheriffs, you'd see a few sheriff's deputies around, where was it, Sam's Club and what was the other one, Costco. There was a couple sheriff's deputies there during like the full COVID thing, But they weren't there to make you wear a mask. They were just there to make sure, I don't know, no shoplifters or if people got crazy, whatever. But it wasn't really sticking out like a sore thumb, where they will be sticking out like a sore thumb with full-on loaded automatics in your face so you see it, in all stores, large and small, food distribution points shall be armed and stationed. And that's where we're heading. So I already see part of this Afghanistan thing is a sort of a trampoline jump off point into that next phase. Because by all accounts across the globe, 30% of all agriculture this year has been lost. 30%. That's a huge amount. That's a gargantuan food price increase, but it looks like with the La Nina locking in for the second year in a row, at the bottom of the solar cycle coming out, like it always does, that we're going to maybe lose this much again next year. And if we have 2 years lost like this, food will be the number one talking point on the news every night. But how do you control those hungry people? Fascist states would give a social credit score. Fascist dictatorships would require that you have things on your phone that would allow you access by coercion. I don't know. Where do we go from here? You can kind of see already how the tapestry is there, but it's not fully filled in. But you can see, the edges already have been, the corners are pretty well marked, and there's a lot of color in the middle. So it comes now.
It's just like you described Demolition Man, and I'm showing everybody the article about Taco Bell, the restaurant of the future. That's what's going to happen is you can sign up after you've got all, medicated up and you got your passports. You can get on a list to, save time through Taco Bell, just like in the future. And it'll probably be located in little bubble cities, just like on that movie, and where meat is deemed illegal and speech is deemed illegal and everything's illegal and you get fined for everything. That's not a movie. That's real life right now almost. Yeah. Did you really think that, I'm sure when you were a kid also, you probably imagined, some of these stories that you saw on these old movies, sci-fi movies about the future were just, just stories. That's what they were, and it was kind of trippy to look at it and watch them and everything. But lo and behold, you're living in one of those movies. I mean, you could take any number of those old movies, and I think we're one step or two away from Soylent Green there. And you're talking about, armed guards at the food posts and how this can be a jumping point. I was telling Anna when my girlfriend, whenever I first saw the thing going on in Afghanistan, I said, you watch, we're just going to get out of there real fast. And then all of a sudden they're going to be informing you that we have to take in a bunch of refugees. But at the same time, we'll not know where all the Americans are at. And, I was going to show everybody this on RT. They're showing the tweet direct from the horse's mouth of the administration there. And they're admitting they don't even know how many Americans are missing. But they know how many Afghans that they need to house, because here's another article right here in my backyard, which was ironic because I was talking about it, that they're going to move 10,000 Afghanis right here next to me at Fort Bliss. So it just goes on and on and on. Pretty predictable things. I mean, we've done this in the past. We did it right after 01. We did the same kind of thing. Supposedly, we needed to help all of these people, and then we brought them over here, and then it turns out those are the exact same people we're supposedly bombing overseas. So all it is chess pieces moving on the board. And if you remember, we were building a nice pipeline through there. So I wonder who's going to really reap the benefits of that rich European natural gas and oil and stuff that's now cut off. So the Russians will be happy with this, I'm sure.
China's string of pearls shall be enhanced by one more pearl, because they had the Gwadar offloading terminal there in Pakistan. The Chinese cut a deal to get that one. But the pesky Americans were offshore as well, but now seems that there's going to be a lot less Americans around in there, and China's going to gain a bunch more strongholds of trading partners, pipelines, rare earth minerals, etc. I mean, that was such a treasure trove, no real pun intended, of minerals and wealth in Afghanistan that was extracted during those 20 years. Because I heard some stories, in Vietnam. I didn't know at the same time during the war that the Americans were pumping oil in the offshore fields, and once they reached peak production, that's when the drawdowns in the troops started. And I was like, no, you got to be kidding, man. I never heard about that. I never heard we were even pumping oil. And sure enough, I did not know that we had drilled oil wells and had been extracting oil that whole time that conflict was going on. No fees paid to anybody. It was just drilled and stolen, basically. Who was going to say anything? I mean, the country was in a conflict. Small offshore resources inside the 12-mile zone? Psh, yeah. But then you need to ask yourself, what was extracted out of Afghanistan over the last 20 years that reached its peak also? Now, that's a mineral wealth question, but then at the same time, the human resource capital is also being utilized too. So you got all these, and now they're saying, oh, they're going to stop the illegal trade of grown substances there. Yeah, okay. Well, that was how our dark forces, like CIA, etc., were funding themselves. So there's a lot of weirdness going on with the drawdown. The largest black money operation in history to keep funding all this stuff suddenly ceases and dries up, and they just like willingly gave it away? I don't think so. Some Godwin 420 TV Freedomist Films and David Dubine from Adapt 2030. We'll be right back after 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Sweet. Anyway, I'm going to go get me a refreshment, and I will be right back in less than 2 minutes and 2 seconds. Right here on 420 TV, where you're allowed to be stoned. Don't judge me. It's okay. What's going on in the chat real quick before I did not know that. Also a good movie. Gregory Peck's in the $1 Million Note. You guys are having a party in there? Yeah. Good. Talk amongst yourself. By all means, you all have wrenches because it's a free speech zone. What's up, Top Knot? Connie, Gary, Bill. Let me see who else I can get. James, Desert Rose, True Blue, Jeffrey, Robert and Kelly. What it is? I'll be right back after these messages. No, just kidding. I'm not really going to give you messages. Sweet. Wait. Where is it? There it is. Sweet. All right. So I wanted to say something, though, before we go back to their broadcast. And let me show you guys right here some good news for everybody. Well, at least it's good news for me. I don't watch TV, but I just seriously despise this. I forgot what his name is, but, he's been on the news. I forgot what the young man's name is, but, it's very irritating, this person here. Anyway, The future Demolition Man. Chalupas is what's next. With no meat, of course, because, you know.
You can torture us and bomb us. Fire is catching. And if we burn, you burn with us.
Are you awake yet? I hope. We've tried for years and years to use passive resistance and loud voices to make a change. The time is over. Your governments around the world have no other goal than to decimate your entire existence at the hands of the bankers and the elites. The war is coming, and it's your choice to decide if you want to be a warrior or a victim. Denial is not a choice anymore. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, the number one listener-supported radio station on the planet. Not giving up. Revolution Radio. All right. Thanks for listening. While we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host. And welcome back for the second hour of Mini Ice Age Conversations. As you heard, largest listener-supported station on the planet. Running costs, obviously. Production costs, definitely. To believe in free speech and even be able to have a voice, listen to others' voices that are being so across the board squeezed out of existence. Consider a donation. freedomslips.com. Revolution Radio Studio A and B. Think how many shows are produced each and every week that have differing ideas and differing opinions that you can tune into, that it may help you put that final twist on the Rubik's Cube so it makes sense and you finally get a game plan. If that's worth anything, consider a donation. So as we swing back into the second hour here, I'm right along with Ransom Godwin from 420 TV Freedomist Films on your dial. He's live streaming tonight over on his channel on YouTube. He was in the naughty section, was banned for live streaming for a while because of some controversial topics. So, you know, we might speak in a riddle as we go through the next hour here, because you get an idea. If you're even half clued in, you'll totally understand what you're saying. But there's certain keywords that, well, you get banned for talking about them. So as we progress through this second hour here, if you tuned in on hour number one, the segue out was the convenient timing of this particular withdrawal from Afghanistan. I don't half understand it. Biden, as incompetent, dementia, doesn't make sense for the timing of it. A couple things for me instantly throw up some flags. Like the Mary Poppins growing over there. That is the number one place on the planet for Mary Poppins growing and manufacturing, for the world distribution, for dark money, for black ops, period. No other larger grow zone on the planet than that. And the Taliban are rolling in going, no. Mary Poppins, that's gone. So for me, I'm like instantly going, whoa. You think these intelligence agencies are going to let their cash cow just go quietly into the night? Are you insane? That's where they're getting trillions with a capital T to be able to fund these different projects and go off and do dark things across the planet. That was a huge one for me too. And then the timing of it and the whole essence of dust in the wind that's going to spread and then suddenly find its way back to the U.S. here. Of course you're going to scatter the people who don't like America. They were all locked up in the prisons, and suddenly Taliban let them all out, and they're all out, and you know what? They're all getting first-class plane tickets back to the United States, because, being in prison in Afghanistan, you always have enough money to get across the ocean and don't have to do any COVID testing, and you can just make it over to the United States and cause trouble over there. See, I just am not buying that either. But that's the game plan. So cut off of dark money and dark funds from the intelligence agencies, and then all of a sudden this whole new threat is just going to reappear on American soil again? What? These two things are huge red flags for me, Ransom. Wanted to start the hour with that because I keep coming back to the timing of it. They were burying something in it. Was it some sort of passports that are going to be, or is there going to be more law mandated something, the fascist control coming in? Because whatever happened this week on something unveiled out into the public was such a threat to the elite's power that it was on page one news. The blowback would be so heavy, so immediate, that this giant story needed to get in the way and interfere, take up front page news time. And the other, whatever it was, sneaky put into place, because it'll take people a few months to catch on to it before it'd be an instantaneous pushback. But now it'll have to go through the circles and people like me and you talking about it, others, so before it'll get into the general public where people go, no, it's enough. That might take 2, 3, 4, 6 months versus having that flash in the powder keg right then, boom, and everybody's against it from day one, versus buying themselves some time for that couple month long trickling incrementalism until pushback starts. So I don't know what it is, but it seems that something not right. Something just does not sniff right. I don't know. I'm picking your brain, Ransom. What do you got?
Let's see here. What to me, it's pretty obvious. I mean, it's a Benghazi weapons transfer. It's a whole shift of power. If you want to think about this, we shut down America. And now, all of a sudden, more shut down. Now, think about, we were in control of all those natural resources there. And I was showing, you talked about that and you touched on it, but I don't think people realize that, if we went to war, let's say with China, just as an example, say it was a staged war, right away you're going to see headlines and people talking about chip shortages, rare earth element shortages. And the reason for that is because China owns most of that. Now, do you think it was a coincidence that the other part in the world that's ready to go in, processing and getting these rare earth elements all of a sudden just got taken over again by, with no resistance? So, and then on top of that, it's a giant weapons cache that just got transferred. And I'll show everybody that with some pictures here. Here's a tweet kind of talking about it. The Taliban are sitting on $1 trillion worth of minerals. All of a sudden they just, hit the jackpot, kind of like in Saudi Arabia did in earlier times. And then at the same time, we left a lot of stuff behind. A lot of stuff that can arm and fuel a crippled army. If you remember, supposedly we almost wiped all of these ISIS fighters and Al-Qaeda fighters out, and then slowly we let them build back up, and then all of a sudden they just so happen
better, baby.
Yeah, they just so happen to come upon all these caches of Humvees, equipment. So they've upgraded their forces, and everyone knows that Afghanistan and Turkey are the gateway from Eurasia and Africa into Europe, which is also the other target that seems to be the target of destabilization, including America. So now all of a sudden we have all of these natural resources from petroleum and natural gas and rare earth elements. And then all of a sudden we just don't have control of those anymore at the same time as we're closing all our businesses. And an update for New Mexico, they just sent out by the, I'm going to go ahead and say communist-leaning governor of New Mexico that now it's all back to masks and you can't go nowhere because of the variants. You know what strain I'm really afraid of is the Andromeda strain. And I hate to be pessimistic, but I am a conspiracy-minded person. And I like to think about tactics. Now, if you wanted the whole world, maybe to get, it's hard to say it because I got in trouble last time for trying to put this out there. Let's put it this way. If you wanted everybody to be susceptible to something later, and then you told them that you need to be afraid of something that's not really something you should be afraid of because it just doesn't make sense. But then later, something that is something you should be afraid of gets passed around all everywhere, and everybody starts to have a bad day, and you lose communication with some relatives or other things like that, if you know what I'm saying. And then all of a sudden it is deadly, and then they'll point to that first group that showed resistance and say, look, it's their fault, which will create a big division of us versus them mentality, which means that no progression in civilization can be achieved at the same time as they're moving the chess pieces around. Food is becoming a shortage. Imagine what people will agree to if they will agree to all these little stupid human tricks now over a perceived threat. Imagine what they'll do when there's very little food. Imagine the rules that they'll be mad about and make you want to go through also. Like, hey, that guy's not going through the line like he's supposed to. He's over there growing stuff and eating more than his ration. Just imagine the kind of craziness. And I keep going back to this. It's already happened. It's not like this is some kind of, fictional idea I'm having or, some kind of, movie I'm describing. I'm talking about real times in the recent past, right here on Earth, not too long ago. Within my grandparents' age and my parents' age, these things have repeated themselves decade after decade. And the idea that it'll never happen here is what I think fuels the denial when we see freedom evaporating from everywhere around us and our own personal choices being told that we can't have a personal choice for the greater good. And all I want to know is what is the end greater good and who is it good for? Because from every indicator I've seen, our whole system is designed to not be good to the human being. I mean, every system we have is to hold back, stifle any kind of real progressive, and I'm not talking about the lefty progressive ideas, but I mean like progression and intellectual aptitude of our children, progression in technology, progression in diet, progression in enlightenment. All of those things are being kept from you with petty games and petty distractions about us versus them and who will do the stupid human tricks better than the other group. And then you got the teacher's pet type people that will always turn into the adult Karens who will call the police, call the authorities to inform them that you're not playing by the perceived rules of the new world governance.
It's a lot to take in. I mean, if you look at the landscape, you described it perfectly, the world we're living in. But when it does come down to the food, this is, I think, where it's really the rubber's going to meet the road. Because as I sent you this article earlier, camps for the unvaccinated, and this comes off the World Domestic Preparedness Consortium, sponsored by Homeland Security. I couldn't believe it. As I watched this and read it, I was like, OMG, what is this thing here? This is called the World Domestic Preparedness Consortium Organization. It was formed in 2004 under FEMA. And what they do is they develop training for small, rural, and tribal emergency responders or stakeholders. Now, it sounds all good. And I'm like, yeah, that's great to have more responders out in the rural countryside because it'll take the fire department 20, 30 minutes by the time the volunteer fire department gets down to the fire department, gets the trucks all up, guys up in gear, 4 or 5 miles down the road, up some gravel road, whatever. You're looking at half an hour. It's not responded to the same way in the city. So the more professionals you have out in the countryside, the better. And that goes for doctors. That goes for EMTs, firefighters, whatever it is, dentists, veterinarians, anybody who knows medicine. You're more than welcome out in the countryside because that's the thing. Everybody needs more of that. So when you look at it on the surface, it looks really good. And, just to respond back to you with the Karens, reporting people in on each other, But, once you start reading further down into this RDCP or RDPC document here, they decided to have some training. And then it goes further into, well, if you want to be part of this core, it's in a rural area, fewer than 50,000 people in a township or town, and less than 1,000 people per square mile. But the whole thing gets kind of deep in the training. The recent training is called MGT 433, Isolation and Quarantine for Rural Communities. Now, this is where you got to raise a few eyebrows here reading through these documents that are from our own institutions about mass quarantine. And what they do is the enforcement level is where they're taking this. And they're talking about getting Karens and people in the local community to do the same thing. Turn in those who have not been medicine jabbed, and at the same time work with the RDCP enforcing voluntary isolation and a quarantine with an individual willing to enter isolation or quarantine. And if that doesn't work, they move to level 2, which is coercion and actual physical restraint. So the documents are a little weird as it gets into what they talk about. If you can coerce somebody to go into these camps, it's less legal complication, ethical complication, and human rights issues because they voluntarily, willingly entered into this. So there's even whole sections here on enforcement levels. So when it comes down to this, they are going to get some sort of prop. Just like you see in the CCP in China, anybody who informs on neighbors to the CCP of something non-party approved gets a reward. Oh, absolutely, they get a reward. Either it's a monetary reward or it's a promotion inside the Chinese Central Party, or it allows them to call in a favor, maybe to get their son or daughter who's going to be enrolling in university to join the Communist Party, because it's an invite-only thing. Like, you might just automatically think that in China, just because you're born there, you can be in the CCP. Oh, no. It is a club invite only. Very prestigious. Everybody's vying for that. So if you were to get invited in the CCP, yours don't stink, and people are terrified of you. And, you're talking about all those kids who were bullied in high school or bullied in middle school that now become the police officers that can go out and bully everybody else. It's like that times 100. So knowing, like you said, Ransom, in the first hour when they did that experiment where, they put guard clothes on a certain amount of people and they put prisoner clothes on the other, and they assumed those roles. It's the same thing with the CCP people in the university. Like, they're their own cadre that oversees the rest of the students. Well, this whole thing here with the COVID quarantine and roundup that they're talking about from the RDCP, now the involuntary quarantining is the whole thing. Test negative, no signs, symptoms, your politics are wrong, you're gone. Now, the whole thing about making it justified, intervention-wise, travel restrictions, quarantining the people, the only effective options are at that point restraint. And this is where they get into, well, you're bending over into the sort of more sticky legal issues and more sticky, how shall we say, human rights violations. But it's for the good of everybody. So once you do this, you will get federal and regional help. So what they're trying to do is like dangling a carrot in front of everybody. And if you're going to be starving, or you turn in your neighbors, or you help force somebody down, you're going to get rewarded. This is exactly what goes on in China. The exact same CCP reward structure as I'm reading it here with the RDCP put out by FEMA here for our own citizens to do this to other citizens. I'm shocked when I read this. I haven't gotten through the entire article because the screen slides are real small. But now this is making out into light. Oh, you know what happened? All of it's gone off the net. Well, luckily, Fair Free People had screen grabbed almost everything. And you could probably use the Wayback Machine, too, and find a few of these. But when it says that involuntary isolation in the way that you have to have a certain amount of people to come to restrain somebody, to take them away, and that's part of your training, and then you get rewarded for it from either the federal or the regional level for each person, each community, each neighborhood, each family that you would forcibly restrain and remove. That's ridiculous. Off the hook. Now, I sent you that link.
Yeah. I
didn't want to here's the one thing they even put it in.
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Did you read it? Is it the scary thing? Deliver voluntary or involuntarily mandatory isolation orders.
Yeah,
it gets into a whole bizarre darkness here.
Go ahead and send me that again. For some reason, I didn't get that link. I got a different link. But what's funny is I kept typing in these things that you were saying, and I kept coming up with all kinds of other programs with similar themes all over the internet that had nothing to do with it, like from Romanian diversity to CDC guidelines for youth camps. And I mean, like, I was just a plethora of stuff, but I don't think I found actually what you were. Yeah, there we go. Cool.
Yeah, StephenRotter.com is where you're going to find this. S-T-E-V-E, Steve, ROTTER.com. SteveRotter.com.
All right, got it. Got it on screen now. There we go.
Yeah, so it's quite the bizarre document, and they do have all the slides. And, having lived in China is the only thing that really raised a lot of awareness for me. The way that it was structured and worded here with the rewards for the difficulty of doing something that is not a willing participant on the other side. They know there's a difficulty level in it, so the reward is going to be greater. But again, I'm sure there's going to be easy level awards just like there are in China. If you heard something and you call in or you report, to your local CCP or police, you would get a reward. But then if you were to apprehend somebody in, let's say, the midst of a crime against the CCP, you're getting a super reward with a bow on top, in addition to the thanks and the favors that you could ask.
Wow.
There's levels of what you put out to protect the party. You get that back plus, because they really want to make sure everybody protects the party. So they make the dangling carrot so large, diamond encrusted, that everybody jumps at it, because it's a life raft in itself. And here I look at this in the United States and say, no, that is impossible. That this here is on our shores. This is straight out of the CCP training manual.
Well, yeah, I'm looking through it here, and the titles that they bother using on here, blowing the whistle on people in your community, and right under there it starts talking about voluntary isolation and how you can, treat people better because they're a lower level of security if they go into the camp voluntarily.
Yeah, right. And if you don't go voluntarily, you're a high-level risk. See, and then we get back into this. FEMA's pinging people now, or whatever Homeland is now, for being possible threats. They're pinging right at the top of that people who don't want to support these mandates and whatnot. And you see how it's being reclassified with the verbiage.
Wow. Yeah, this is absolutely some nightmare scenario stuff here. And if you've read any of the executive orders that go back all the way to Obama, they reworded the section that dealt with SARS, and they redefined it as any respiratory illness or any illness that shows symptoms, that goes along with the respiratory illness. So what they meant basically is if they drive their van through the neighborhood and, it's whatever situation they've declared these emergency powers, and your grandpa has emphysema and he coughs and he's on a bottle, but, he's not sick. He just coughs all the time. He's gone. You get caught poofing on some tweeds at the wrong time, and you and your friends are coughing in a house. Guess what? You might wind up in one of these voluntary isolation areas. Or, just read, I don't even have to get that far in here. When I read stuff like enforcement level is lower, and voluntary isolation and or quarantine when an individual is willing to enter into isolation or quarantine, I'm thinking, okay, you're talking about voluntary, But what if I say no? You know, they insinuate, like you said, that it's a higher, how did they word it? Higher threat level. You know, and that's not what they said. Where is it? Yeah, your enforcement level is higher, meaning what? That they'll have to use violence on you? I mean, what does that mean?
Well, here's a quote in the training. If a pharmacist believes you need quote unquote assistance with your health, they can report you. And somebody from the RDCP will pick you up and bring you to a quarantine location for your quote unquote safety. That's a direct quote on one of the slides. Can you even believe they would say such a thing directly out there, so in the open, that you could be reported by somebody you don't even know that has nothing to do with your health except maybe filling a prescription or something? Exactly like you said, just a random, you coughed because you had too much wasabi with your sashimi, you know, and I got a whole, throat full of wasabi. Yeah, I'm gonna, make a sound. Oh, MGT 417 crisis management.
Spooky.
How about the MGT 448-V, which is -5? Planning for animal and agricultural and flood related. So wait a second, they're already putting food into the mix, are they not?
Yeah.
So the deeper you get into it, the more it is. I don't know. I'm gonna reach out to this guy and ask him if I can get an interview with him, because I would like to pick his brain and then bring that info to people.
Yeah, they're talking about everything in here, from controlling you from the local level to controlling your drugs, your pharmaceuticals, both pharmaceutical and non-pharmaceutical. And they're talking about, how local law enforcement and the regular network of local government would be kind of quarterbacking all of this, and even non-governmental agencies and stuff like that. Crisis management for school-based incidents. I mean, they got a lot of stuff covered here, don't they?
Yeah, but your non-pharmaceuticals would include such things as vitamin C, vitamin D. That's included in that non-pharmaceuticals, even the control of those which are soon to be regulated substances such as vitamin C. Like for me, if lemons are on sale, and I would buy a 10-pound bag of lemons, and then I would cut them in real thin slices and dehydrate them, because you're basically eating vitamin C chips, and then you can eat the entire rind and everything because it chews up. It's super yummy. And it's really hard to eat the rind from a lemon or a lime, but that's where most of the vitamin C is, by the way. But if you're able to dehydrate that, but then if you're going to go buy it in a store or something really incredible, powerful like Camu powder, high vitamin C, there's already word that this stuff's going to be regulated in the future of nutraceuticals, which is non-pharmaceuticals, which is nature-based. So what kind of world do you think, Ransom, it would be where they're regulating vitamin C, where then you have to get a prescription to get vitamin C, let alone vitamin D, which we all know helps, vitamin E, the B vitamins? These are all be prescription-only types of things. But then it comes right back down into, well, it's in the food. So do we need to regulate food because food becomes your medicine, and there's these same types of vitamins in food that are regulated? No different than, like you said, the THC content in some of these plants. Well, it gets into kind of a dark and mysterious web the further you go down into the control mechanisms of what you pinged on, pharmaceutical versus non-pharmaceutical.
Yeah, well, even more than that, think about this. If your government, or whatever entity it is, saying government's kind of corny nowadays because of the intermix of different governments and corporations deciding things for you, and NGOs and all these other things. But think about this. If there's a control on the market of vitamin C and other things like that, and at the same time, the weather so happened to change where it was very hard to produce citrus plants in the northern hemisphere. You essentially don't have much to get vitamin C from. And then are they going to regulate you eating spruce and pine and, whatever kind of things you can find to get vitamin C, vitamin D, and other things? And as you know, if you're eating calorie driven food that has no nutrition in it, and you're not taking supplements, or maybe you want to, but you can't find it in this scenario. You can't find the supplements. They're being controlled, and a doctor won't give it to you because they don't have it or they don't want to give it to you or whatever the reason is. And you just can't get a hold of certain stuff like vitamin C and vitamin D. What happens is you start to get sick. And the more you get sick, the weaker you are, and more dependent on someone else to help you. And also very, if your immune system's not up, you might catch flus and other things like that, per se. And then you might actually have an impact on your immune system. Say you have developed recently a bad immune system for one reason or another. In the future, without vitamin C, vitamin D, and some of these other things, your T cell count will drop dramatically, and basically you get malnourished and have what's similar to HIV. I mean, basically your immune system's not working anymore, so any nick, cut, bug bite, what have you could kill you, literally. And then we get back into those same controlled substances like amoxicillin or other things like that, and there may not be other places you could get them. Like I got this bottle of Aquamox that's for fish, and it says right on there, don't take it, it's for fish. And then I looked at the PDR reference of the pill, and it's the exact same pill, same number, same color, same everything that your dentist gives you. But you can get hundreds and hundreds of these for a fraction of the price with no prescription. So obviously they already try to do this now. Imagine if they're claiming emergency powers, and the only reason that they would do that is to either A, prevent you from having it, or B, stockpile it for themselves because they know something long, hard, and whatever's going to happen. But it's weird that we see all these moves on the world stage, because it tells me that in the world government, America has no place in the other side of this transformation, this great reset. Whether or not a grand solar minimum affects humanity in the way that it could and has in the past, we still have to contend with these entities that think they know best for us, and they want to control the planet with their offspring. I mean, just think about that. Why would these elites that want their offspring in the future, their legacies, to control things, why would they even care about other people and their legacies unless they need workforces or a citizenry to eat the substance out of? I mean, that's literally the place that they've put citizenry around the world, is in the sheep position. And I have a little story about domestication versus being wild. If you take a wolf, for example, a wolf is wild. It may starve from day to day, but it continues to, enjoy freedom. And it goes where it wants, and it may eat and it may not eat, and it may have to deal with, people hunting it or having to fend off other wolves or whatever it is. But it's free. Now, on the other hand, on the contrast, you have sheep, you have cattle, and they may live a nice life, and they may have, a medical system. The farmer takes care of them, gives them antibiotics, makes sure the food's clean, the water's clean, and puts them in a little pen and tells them when they can go here and when they can go there and when it's time to get the medicine. But we all know where the sheep and the cow end up. They end up in the slaughterhouse in the end. The wolf doesn't end up there because, it's wild, it's free, it doesn't have rules, there's no constraints, borders, boundaries, or things stopping it from utilizing the earth to live its life. And that's the position that they hate, and that's why they don't like farmers and they don't like people that prep self-sufficient people, is because they literally have understood a basic concept that we're in a symbiosis with the earth we live on, and the earth can provide for you as long as you don't, continue to have war on top of it, destroy everything, and stifle production of what the earth offers.
Yeah, bring me back to the Aquamox. Tell us a little more about that. Fish antibiotics. Let's say I want to go get that. I'm going to go to my farmer's co-op.
Yep.
And I'm going to walk in and say, you know what? I have some fish ponds. I need this. So tell me what how do you spell that? AQUIMOX?
It's AQUA-MOX. And there's another one called Fishmox, which is exactly the same thing. Evidently, the USDA does not allow the sale to humans of animal quote unquote products. However, to get around this, evidently the companies themselves produce the same thing for two different markets. One market being human, and one market being animal. So right here it says on there, don't use this. This is not for humans. It's for bacterial infections in fish, and it controls the common bacterial growth of that. So, but if you look up the pill, this is a common trick, and I don't know if you can get in trouble for this, but in animal stuff, you can just look at it, and I got this filter on. Hold on, let me take it off so you guys can see normally. Here, so it's a little pill. It has a number on it. You look the number up, and lo and behold, it's the same thing that they're offering for humans. It's the exact same thing, even though they're not allowed to say it's the same thing. But the problem is I went to the farm co-ops, and I went to the feed stores and the pet stores, and guess what they said? We don't have it. We can maybe order it. Well, I went to look on the internet to order it myself. Almost everybody was out of stock. Only a few places actually had it. And it's up to you what you put in your body, in my opinion. So I'm not giving any kind of advice of any kind at all. I'm just stating a fact that this is the same product that's given to human beings in a different bottle. It's like, you like Libby's peas, or do you like the generic peas from the Surefine generic stuff, even though they're at the same factory and they just run down a conveyor belt with a different labeling machine and get different labels and get sent out as two different products. Or if you like Bush and you like Bush Light, you like Bush Light better or whatever than Coors or Coors Light or whatever it is. I forgot what the equivalent was. Well, the only difference is I think it's Budweiser. The only difference is one sits in a lot for 6 or 7 months longer than the other one. So it's aged. Natural, organic, all these words are being twisted, contorted, and redefined to trick you, the person.
Yeah, and there's a fair few other little goodies in farm co-ops, but just a quick word of advice for anybody that might want to do that. You're going to have to tell them that you're farming tilapia, because that's mainly where this would be used.
Yeah.
And you don't even have to say you're farming it. You don't have to say you have a fish farm. You don't need to go into that great a detail, because heaven forbid if they're also fish farmers and they're talking about something, they say, no, I got a tank of tilapia and I was just trying it to see if it would work with some sort of hydroponic system, and that's all you really need to say, and they'll understand that, okay, you got a tank full of fish, and there's a lot of fish in there that are eating the detritus from your floating grow trays, whatever. But just tell them you have tilapia and you want to use that, because that's mainly going to be the number one use for that. So I've heard. Just saying. And yes, I have ordered stuff from the co-op when it's not in stock. And it was about probably last month. I told you I ordered something. It took 7 months to come in. 7 months for the seed. I had these iron clay peas and then these winter peas, field peas for cover crop. I ordered them way back in January, and they came in last week of July, first week of August. So it could take some time, but it'll eventually arrive. And things like this have a shelf life. Those Aquamox will have a shelf life, so it might appear a little bit faster than some of those bags of 50-pound bags of peas that I was ordering. But you can order it. They will actually finally get you your order, but it might take some time. But again, imagine if you ordered that, you forgot you ordered it, and then suddenly it comes into your hands. You're like, oh, so excited. I'm so glad I ordered that like 9 months ago. I can't believe it's here now, But I do have a registered farm, so any of this, goods that I would want to get, everything from the ivermectin for horses, by the way, which is the exact same 1.87% paste, apple flavored for a horse, 1,250-pound dose. That's for a 1,250-pound horse. Obviously, people don't weigh that much. I hope you have a calculator. But anyway, you can get some of these things at farm stores, because most of it, I didn't know either. This is a random thing. I had a tube of Neosporin, and I was talking with one of my neighbors, and I cut myself doing some fence work, and I was like, yeah, I got the Neosporin, and she says to me, oh yeah, that was originally invented for cats. And I was like, what? And she said, yeah, that was originally a veterinary medicine for cats, wounds on cats. I don't know how many years ago. But then it evolved from being a antibiotic for cats into what we see now, the little yellow tubes for Neosporin. Interesting roundabout, but Anyway, go for the farm co-ops. They're going to have things when a lot of others don't.
Yeah, it really surprised me here when they didn't have it, because I've been other places in the South and in other places with more farming. We do have a lot of farming here, but evidently they just don't have the supplies here, or maybe it's a recent fad of being out of things that just aren't being delivered. But judging by the internet websites, they also were having trouble keeping stock of certain products. And better yet, maybe you should just grow fish so that when you go down there and ask for it, it's for the fish. I'm using it for my fish, or maybe I'll get some fish and then use it on them or whatever, because you're not allowed to say stuff. We live in a bizarre world. I was just going to say I'm glad, and I'm going to put this up on the screen for you guys, and you guys should all thank the Lord, thank the heavens, or thank whatever you think, that, you don't live over there in Afghanistan where your children have to cover themselves, where you have to watch what you say or what you believe, or you might get punished. I mean, it's not like we live in a place like that. It's not like where we live is starting to be like that. It's not like we live in a country where the rulers tell us to cover up or uncover up on our children. It's not like we live in a place like that where we censor some people and not others, right? So thank heavens for that.
I know America's the freest country in the world. That's what I keep getting told. It's the freest country in the world. Uh-huh.
Well, we're still in.
And I'm always like, have you traveled anywhere? Where have you ever gone outside of the United States? Because the view's kind of narrow there. You know what I mean?
That's what's so scary, is all of these countries that we've always, in our mind, were free places, or at least mostly free places, like anywhere in Europe, Australia, New Zealand, United States. And now when you turn on the television, I can't tell the difference between Sci-Fi Channel and the news channel. The stuff that I'm seeing is so far out there. I honestly really didn't think it would happen this fast in my lifetime. I thought I'd be like 80 or something, and my kids and my grandkids would have to deal with it. Unfortunately, no, here we are, and it's a reality. But yeah, we're sitting here comparing. I don't know if you saw this the other day. It was pretty funny. But one of the reporters asked the Taliban if they were going to allow free speech and girls to say what they want. And he said, well, if Facebook doesn't have to, why do we?
Yeah.
Ouch. Touche.
Is that really what he said?
Yeah, I was real close to that. It was like, why don't you guys go ask Facebook? We can do it if they can.
Yeah, because I have a friend of mine who is an American citizen who's stuck in Australia and cannot leave. And, I was talking to him for a minute, and he's like, yeah, my kids, I got to get their passports renewed, but we can't go down to the next. They need to go down to Canberra to get that done, but he's up in New South Wales, and he's like, well, we can't cross the border at all. Everything's locked down, so we can't even go get our passports updated so we can even leave. So they are hostage in Australia, unable to leave. So if you think the people that are stuck in Afghanistan, it's just not there. It's Australia also has locked everybody in. Doesn't matter what country you're in. His lockdown's getting, seems to be becoming the real deal. Because when I see things like that where they won't even let other citizens out of the country, it's getting locked down. And from the research I'd done, that was the 1 year mark for me, was when the lockdown started. The planet had 1 year left before the food shortages started, because the lockdown would coincide with the control mechanisms. When the food got real expensive or unavailable, the people would start fighting for food, that the lockdowns would occur. Now, what we're seeing so far is Afghanistan, they want to get out, but they can't. Australia, there's an enormous amount of people that want to get out, but they can't. New Zealand also cusp on the borderline of that. And how many other nations in the Western, I guess, homogeneous influence are going to be following along with the same, or not allowing people to enter or move about because they don't have the proper papers. That's another form of lockdown within a nation. So you got the macro, micro, and it doesn't matter if you're going from a county level up to an international level or the other way down. Every single level of the way you would determine a country's space or a space itself, like I say, a county, everything has levels within levels of control built into it. So as you see these lockdowns intensifying, where they're calling about for something like you won't be able to go to the next state without having proof that on your phone that you've done what you're supposed to do as a good little citizen. So when that really in earnest starts to be talked about, the time you have left is 6 months. Because people will scramble to get out to better growing areas, cheaper areas. I'm so surprised, truly, that not more people have left California, Oregon, and Washington at the moment with blaring speakers and just to the moon airline landing lights in your face of, hey, something's very wrong, hey, something's very wrong, hey, something's very wrong, and they're still there. Get out of there. That is a death zone. You know, but people didn't heed the messages, so what do you do? These lockdowns are in earnest, at least in my opinion, the key indicator of how close we're getting to global food shortages. I mean, having you try to kowtow to this, and that's great. You know, I love the way that the Taliban did that. Go ask Facebook, because they can do what they want or say restrict speech the way they want. You go into private stores where they say your constitutional rights end at the front door of being in a public mall, of all places. So people have been so easy to acquiesce and give up everything without any resistance, zero. So it's going to get locked down hard and ferociously because there's been no pushback. So the powers that are out there understand that they can take it down and put the thumb screws on down to the bone if they want to, because nobody's pushed back at all, almost nobody. In terms of a global populace, probably less than 1%. If it was around 5%, the global elite would be shaking in their boots at the moment. If it was 10%, they would be rethinking their plans completely. But because there's been almost zero said except for random voices, but we're such a random voice out in the land of sheep, the lockdowns are going to be incredibly tight when they do arise, because at this point nobody's stood up yet, so very few people have. And it's always like, oh, you know, if you're with a family member, oh, don't talk like that, what do people think? Oh, you know, and wherever you are, there's others that are really in your close, tight-knit circle, from family, friends, whatever, that are always going to try to pull you into the status quo, like, don't rock the boat, don't say that. Why you don't have to why do you have to be like that? Why do you have to make a stink at the front door? You know? Something like this. So when these lockdowns in earnest begin, your time to get any types of farm co-op medicines are going to be gone. Your limit will be of within a few miles of your home, and that'll be it. And if you think I'm bluffing or joking or anything, look how quickly it occurred in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. You couldn't go with any more than 5 or 6 miles from your house without being arrested. And we're talking how many tens of millions of people are there in Australia, New Zealand, and the UK? Over 100 million people, about. And they're telling me that they locked 100 million people down and arrested people for going within 6 miles of their home. And out of 100 million people, no people stood up, and it's still just like steamrolled over the whole population. And they're just supposed to be the most, yeah, you never do anything, you know, it's like that was that fast and that easy. So what's it going to be like when it really comes down to the food and there's not enough? And you get out of line and you're going to get blasted in line, and nobody will say a thing. They'll just go probably step right over you. Oh, my turn's next. My kid's got to eat. Hey, you shouldn't have spoke up at the front door. You get what you deserve, see? Or somebody will turn you in. This is the world we're going to a little bit. it did happen so fast. I didn't expect it to happen this fast either. Grand solar minimum I knew was coming, but I didn't know it would take this form of control and fascism the way it's moved. Or dictatorial powers, I didn't know it was going to go this direction. But it is fast, it's ferocious, and it's going to happen faster when the food starts to get less available and more expensive. And when economies start to falter after this 2.0 lockdown coming up here this fall and this winter, because what I've seen so far with this rent moratorium has been pushed yet again. You know, you might talk about leaving weapons for the Taliban, and that was a transfer of weapons like it was in Benghazi. Well, this is a transfer of wealth in a different way, these rent moratoriums. They've given legal precedent for somebody to steal your house, to steal your second home. So talk about wealth redistribution. Whoever was in that house and lucky enough to be in that house at the moment got a free house. So they redistributed the wealth. Because as it looks now, it's only a 50-50 chance that these eviction moratoriums will be lifted in any shape or form to be meaningful across the U.S. versus being like a one-off county over here or a one-off state over there. There's a huge difference in that. So if you're looking at all these crazy things happening, they gave a legal precedent to steal another person's house. So it's in play. It truly is in play. And Ransom, I agree, it's happened so much faster than I ever thought it would.
And I kind of wanted to point out to everybody, you can't hear the sound, but I'm scrolling through Twitter, and I'm looking at the Kabul airport in Afghanistan, and it's a video of people having a shootout. There's kids everywhere. Not really everywhere, but there's some kids mixed in there. And I see these weird pits that are already pre-dug, big pits. You know, just the kind of thing that you might see on the news full of bodies. And then, you know, I look at this other video. There's a Afghan couple, I guess, handing their teeny tiny infant toddler over to U.S. forces over a razor wire 10-foot wall. And the American forces take the baby. So those people will probably never see that child again. And then, you know, at the same exact time, you have Major Taylor of the U.S. military says, well, we have a good footprint there. We're saving people. The Kabul airport is totally under control and flights are moving as normal. We got it under control. There's nothing to see here. Don't worry about those people falling off them planes. That was just a trick by the liberal media. No, I'm just kidding. But not really. I mean, you can see the disconnect. The official sources of information are telling us one thing, and you can clearly see with your eyes that that's not what's happening. And I say, you know, the same thing and the same lie or deception is being played to you about food, about medicine, about world politics and who actually runs things. And not only that, they're lying to you about ways you can avoid it and be self-sufficient. That's why, you know, they've been trying to label preppers and other people like that for quite a long time. And I want to tell you, which is kind of funny, this story about a British woman, 27, who went on holiday 18 months ago, and she's whining that she's living on a paradise island in the South Pacific Ocean. I mean, God, look at it. It's beautiful for you guys looking at the picture. Just a beautiful place to be. And not only that, if things really went tits up with a real pandemic, she's in one of the safest places in the world, right? But she would rather get back to see her friends and family and be locked in her home and you know, wear the new hijab that's worldwide now, basically, you know, to cover your face, except for it just expanded to men as well. But she's complaining about it. I mean, just think about where people's heads are at. And I was looking at, you know, tonight, for all those people that believe in the power of planets, Jupiter is in an exact alignment with us and the sun and is out in the night sky. I don't know if it's still out there, but it has been during this broadcast, where if you got a telescope, you can look right up on it right now and see the red eye of Jupiter. So there's some weird energies going around, along with what seems to be, to me, planned and staged events to move the chess pieces around the board.
Indeed it is. The programming of the mind, especially as I look at some of these images, you know, you're going to start to see more and more is this weather, like you said, is weather phenomenon is going to start to move into the next distraction. The next chess piece being moved is going to be climate change. Because here, they were talking about the hot down in Spain, and it's making a lot of, news headlines. Hot down there. Obviously, it's the middle of summer in August. What do you expect in southern Spain? In the middle of August, it's always hot. But then 2 days later, they had 15 degree Fahrenheit below normal temperatures. It didn't make the news, but the heat did. So as we look at this, everything is a spectacular story. The pendulum's swinging over for the next set and bevy of distraction. The next chess piece is going to be climate change. So how does this all build into everything? Well, it gives a convenient excuse of what the weather's falling out in the extremes right now.
You kidding? It's snowing.
But how's it going to be used to control the citizens during this lockdown time? See, then it's going to be another level of control on top of everything else already taking place.
Absolutely.
So what will it be at that point? Because this whole climate change is going to get worked into the mix. I assure you it will.
I noticed there's not much mention about the snow in Montana and, Colorado, Utah. And
Colorado and Idaho. No, that's snow right now in August. No. How dare you?
Oops. So, I'm sure you've been following all of that because that's what you do. But, they keep saying that, and just like you were saying, it's almost a joke to talk about, oh my God, it's August and people are hot in the Northern Hemisphere in the middle of summer.
Yeah. But as soon as the cold comes in or the way below normal cold temperatures, they don't talk. But the August snows are kind of a rare thing. But if it was in one location on top of maybe one peak or somewhere, you might go, okay, that was a random storm. But 4 states and parts of Canada receiving snow these days right now, that's a bit of rare that's a large, wide covered area to receive snow in August.
Sweet. Let me see here. Where's my button? And that was, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. David Dubai with mini Ice Age conversations there. And thanks to him for allowing me to be part of that conversation once in a while. I appreciate that. And thanks for everybody watching. I hope you'll see us next Thursday. And, I've been saying it, but for real now, I think I got everything in order. Finally, it took me months. Just got to get this roof fixed and we'll be totally legit. Because I ruined one computer because it pretty much thunderstormed while I was sleeping in one morning. But here we are. Anyway, I'm going to start having news programs in the morning or in the evening. I haven't quite figured out which one. But look forward to 420 TV and PP in Your Face, where I show you all the predictive programming along with the 420 TV news. We'll be covering like a movie or a show every time I do my news broadcast. So peace out. Thanks for watching. The time is 4:20, or at least I hope it is for you, and the weather is partly cloudy. Whew. Anyway, peace out. 177.6 on your freedom of speech dial. Liberty and freedom are ideas, but don't get them confused. Liberty is permission, and freedom is freedom. Anything involved with liberty is a degree of permission. I'm not at liberty to say military service people go out on liberty, It's Lady Liberty. Those are all permissions. What you want is individual rights and freedom. And those are controversial ideas these days, I guess. I don't know why. It just seems like every individual would want to be free, and every individual would want to have their own guaranteed rights. Wow, that's a crazy, crazy concept. But anyway, peace out.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
broken thoughts I cannot repair. Beneath the stains of time, the feeling disappears. You are someone else. I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. The needle tears a hole, the old familiar sting. Try to kill it all away, but I remember everything. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in you, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, I will let you down. I will make you hurt. I wear this crown of thorns upon my liar's chair, full of broken thoughts I cannot repair. Beneath the stains of time.
Get the vaccine? No. Why didn't you get it? What if you catch COVID? The vaccine doesn't stop you from catching COVID. Why are you being so selfish? What if you catch it and give it to me? But you've been vaccinated. Yeah, but you can still give it to me. What's the vaccine for then? It'll stop you from getting really sick and dying if you catch it. So if I catch it and give it to you, but you've already had the vaccine, it'll still stop you from getting really sick and dying. Exactly. That's why you should get it. That's why I should get it? But you got it already. But if you catch it, you could get sick and die. So by not getting the vaccine, the only person I'm putting at risk is myself of getting sick and dying? No, you're putting me at risk. Didn't you already get the vaccine, so you won't get sick and die, even if I gave it to you? But you could give it to someone who can't be vaccinated. But so could someone who's been vaccinated, because the vaccine doesn't stop you from getting COVID.
looks like